So now we have a video with Anthony and Amber talking about their business that they have together. Like the two of them got to at least get on some kind of page so that way they can agree to disagree so they can settle whatever differences that they have. Because these things are better done with a mediator between the two of you before you go to court for your divorce versus when you get there. Because with everything else going on and everything that's going to happen, like this I'm going to get you before you get me mentality is really going to not work out for the both of them, especially when they have businesses tied together. Now, the whole thing with Anthony in his house, where Amber probably will be able to get the law on her side, is because he used marital funds for what he should have been using for his marriage on his mistress. Now, that will help her in the long run when it comes to what she can possibly get out of his real estate that he owned before the marriage. Typically, and I know this because I got my divorce in Georgia, so I know how Georgia law works. Typically, what would happen if there was no type of affair going on and no misappropriating of the money in Georgia, then he would be able to keep his house, his property on his own. She wouldn't be able to touch it. Now, because in Georgia, they do allow for reasons as to why we could change this overall fact of there was no prenuptial signed or whatever. So that way, now your stuff is in jeopardy, right? Depending on the length of the marriage. Being that they have not really been married that long, typically, if no affair was going on, he will be able to leave with what he came into the marriage with, and so will she. And then they will only have to decipher what is going to happen with the things that they join together. But because he has committed adultery, and not just committed adultery, but used marital funds to go towards his mistress, now she can bring that up into court in order to try to get a larger percentage of his home, whether or not he has to sell the home or he has to give the home to her. Now, what they probably look into, because he does have the majority of that home, is to buy her out of the percentage that she could have gotten from him, which will generate money in her pocket. But with the two of them, they own a business, real property together, that club. And right now, that club is in jeopardy of being closed because somebody ain't paid the bill. And it looks like he was the one who was supposed to do that. And she should have been following up to make sure he was doing that. But with everything, I'm sure a lot of stuff is being overlooked because Club 44 probably about to be Club Zero because ain't nobody up in there, nobody's really working, and they're about to lose it. So this is where they really have to come together to see whether or not a mutual understanding of what should happen, but with that club, they need to come up with some type of agreement before they go into the court, because it can negatively, that club can negatively affect both of them, because in the event that it closes down, then they're going to lose profits and money that was invested into that company, and they both stand a chance to lose, right? So if what he can do is, because that is the case, and if that property does go elsewhere, they both now have debt. And anybody that ever been in a marriage knows that when it comes down to debt, typically most states will side with splitting it straight down the middle. Okay, you're responsible for half of the debt accumulated during marriage, and they're responsible for the other half. Now, when it comes to a business contract, then it's the terms. Most people have what is known as a clause written into their contract when two partners come together. That's why it's best to have your business on your own. What happens in the event that the business fall apart? Well, this is where it might end up having an issue, because if there's something written in there to where they equally take on the responsibility of the failure or the successes of the business, meaning if the business explodes, they'll split the profits right down the middle, or if it fails, y'all will split the debt right down the middle. Well, what can typically happen is Amber cannot afford to pay the debt, and it will become more of a hardship for her Well, he might put that real estate, even though she'd probably be considered for a percentage of it, on her as to, I'll take on the debt of the business if you relinquish whatever you would have gotten from my home, which ultimately will leave Amber with nothing. So, yeah, let's see how they're gonna play out on this. What are y'all takes? Do y'all feel like they really do need to come to some type of agreement on their own before it backfires on the both of them? Yes, Amber Anthony is at fault for the severity of their breakup, but it's going to affect both of them, y'all. That's if Country Wayne stick with the law, because we know sometimes they kind of veer off to not even first reality. But we'll see how this pan out. As always, be your brothers and sisters keeper, keep God first. And toodles.